Of all the civilizations to rise from the dust of history, none captures our collective imagination quite like ancient Egypt. We know their greatest hits: the murder of Osiris, the magical resurrection by Isis, the epic battle of Horus and Set. We know the pyramids, the pharaohs, the golden masks. But beneath this well-trodden narrative lies a deeper, stranger, and far more ancient stratum of belief. A world of cosmic cows, drunken lionesses, and lotus-born gods. These are the tales that truly shaped the Egyptian soul, the little-known myths you absolutely missed. Our journey begins not on Earth, but in the heavens, with a myth so pivotal it was inscribed in the tombs of kings to guide them in the afterlife: the myth of the celestial cow. The most pivotal myth in Egyptian cosmology starts with a simple, shocking idea. The sun god Ra was once an old, frail king who ruled on Earth, and his own people tried to overthrow him. Humanity grew complacent. They forgot the divine order, the Ma'at, that sustained creation. They saw Ra's age not as wisdom, but as weakness, and they plotted rebellion. They plotted to overthrow the very god who had given them life. Ra, all-seeing and all-knowing, learned of their treachery. His heart was filled not with rage, but with a profound cosmic sorrow. He summoned the divine council of the most ancient gods, including the primordial waters of Noon. What should be done? Ra asked. They've raised their weapons against their creator. The council's verdict was swift and terrible. Rebellion against Ma'at could not be tolerated. Humanity must be annihilated. The instrument of this divine justice was Ra's own daughter, the powerful eye of his power, the goddess Hathor. In her benign form, she was the goddess of love, music, and beauty. But at Ra's command, she transformed into the fierce, bloodthirsty lioness goddess, Sekhmet, the powerful one. Descending upon the earth, she became a raging storm of vengeance. Her claws were like daggers, her roar shook the mountains, and her pleasure was in the slaughter. She waded through fields of humanity, her jaws crushing bone, her thirst for blood unquenchable. The Nile, it was said, ran red. At first, Ra watched with grim satisfaction, but as the carnage continued, a new emotion stirred within him: pity. He saw that his creation was being utterly erased, yet a divine decree, once spoken, could not be simply revoked. The destruction had to be stopped by cunning, not command. He devised a plan. He ordered his messengers to rush to the island of Elephantine to fetch a vast quantity of red ochre, a mineral the color of blood. Meanwhile, he commanded his priestesses to brew thousands of jars of beer, enough to flood the fields. That night, as Sekhmet prepared to continue her rampage at dawn, the gods mixed the red ochre with the beer, creating a lake of liquid that shimmered in the moonlight, perfectly mimicking a vast sea of blood. When the dawn came, Sekhmet saw the field and let out a roar of triumph. She bent down and drank and drank and drank, lapping up the intoxicating brew until her head grew heavy, her limbs grew weak, and she collapsed into a deep, peaceful sleep. She awoke not as the vengeful Sekhmet, but as the gentle Hathor once more. Humanity was saved, but the relationship was forever broken. Ra could no longer bear to live among such treacherous beings. He called upon the sky goddess, Nut, and commanded her to take a new form. Nut transformed into a gigantic celestial cow, her body becoming the vault of the heavens itself. Along with his inner circle of gods, climbed upon her back. As she rose to an immense height, the earth fell away below. This act of ascension created the permanent separation between the divine and the mortal realms. The spots on the cow's belly became the stars, and her milk became the shimmering path we know as the Milky Way, the celestial river down which the sun god's bark would sail for all eternity. This myth, preserved in the enigmatic book of the heavenly cow, wasn't just a story. It was the Egyptian explanation for why the gods are distant, why we must strive for Ma'at, and the very origin of the galaxy above our heads. But the story of the angry eye of Ra had another more bizarre iteration. In another version, the eye, sometimes Hathor, sometimes a more abstract entity, known simply as the distant goddess, became so enraged that she fled Egypt entirely, vanishing into the unforgiving deserts and foreign lands to the south, taking her divine power with her. Her absence caused a cosmic crisis. Without the protective, life-giving power of the eye, Ra grew weak, and the land of Egypt itself began to wither. The gods were desperate. They needed a diplomat, a persuader, someone whose strength was not in force, but in words. They chose Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, magic, and writing. But Thoth had another, older form, the baboon, often depicted as a great ape with his hands raised in worship of the rising sun. The baboon was revered for its intelligence and chattering, persuasive nature. Thoth, in his ape god aspect, was the perfect emissary. He journeyed into the deep, unknown deserts, finally finding the distant goddess in the form of a wild and ferocious lioness, simmering with fury. Thoth did not approach her with threats or pleas. He sat down and began to talk. He told her stories. He recited beautiful poetry. He engaged her brilliant, if angry, mind. He posed riddles and praised her strength and beauty. With each word, he subtly guided her back towards Egypt, walking and talking alongside her. The most famous tale tells of how he finally broke her rage. He told her a story of a time when the lion was tricked by the gazelle, making her laugh. He then told a sad story of loss, making her weep. Each tear that fell from the distant goddess onto the sand, according to the myth, transformed into a human being. Through his eloquence, Thoth not only appeased her but transformed her destructive energy into a creative force. He convinced her to return home, restoring her power to Ra and vitality to Egypt. This myth celebrates the ultimate Egyptian virtue, the triumph of intelligence, persuasion, and heka, magic over brute destructive force. If these tales reveal a world of cosmic violence and cunning reconciliation, our final story takes us back to the very first moment of peace. Before Ra, before the rebellion, there was only the dark, silent, boundless waters of noon. From this primordial chaos, a mound of earth emerged, and upon that mound, a single, perfect blue lotus flower rose from the waters and slowly opened its petals to the first dawn. Sitting within the flower, illuminated by the first light, was a young and beautiful god. This was Nefertem, the lotus bloom at the nose of Ra. He was the child of creation itself, born from the waters of noon, nurtured by the primeval mound, and brought into being by the sun's first light. He was the embodiment of perfection, beauty, and the sweet, intoxicating scent of the lotus. The Egyptians believed this scent had divine power. It could heal, it could please the gods, and it could invoke the pure joy of a new beginning. Nefertem became the god of perfumes, healing, and this primordial rebirth. He was the first sunrise, the first breath of sweet air, the hope that emerges from the boundless unknown. While the great gods like Atum or Ra were credited with the act of creation, Nefertem was the feeling of it. He was the beautiful, fragrant result. His image, a young man with a lotus blossom crown, or sometimes as a lion-headed man, connecting him to the potent solar power of Sekhmet, was a powerful amulet. To wear his scent was to carry the promise of rebirth, to be healed, and to be connected to that perfect first moment of order emerging from primeval darkness. He was the hope that after every period of darkness, be it the night, the death of a king, or the rebellion of mankind, a new lotus would bloom, bringing with it the sweet scent of a new dawn. These forgotten myths of the celestial cow, the cunning ape god, and the lotus child are not mere footnotes. They're the foundational layers of a belief system that understood the universe as a fragile, precious balance. They knew the gods were not simply benevolent rulers, but complex beings capable of sorrow, rage, and pity. They believed that disorder was always a threat, held back only by the constant maintenance of Ma'at, which could be achieved through awe of the distant heavens, the application of wisdom over violence, and the clinging to the beautiful, fragrant hope of renewal. So the next time you think of Egypt, look past the mummies. Remember the drunken lioness, the chattering baboon, and the lotus in the dawn. For in those strange and beautiful tales, the ancient Egyptian heart beats strongest. Watch the Egyptian Gods Explained video to learn more, and let us know in the comments below which myth would you like to hear next.